I will recap, Florida, obviously a disappointing outcome. We've had, you know, a few of those that, that certainly don't feel good about anything that you do the next day or the next, opportunity that you get before you play again. So, you have to look at everything that you do, examine everything that you do on a day-to-day basis, and make sure that you're addressing those things that are most important to getting the right outcomes. Look, when you don't get the right outcomes, immediately it's going to be, take this action, do this, bench that guy, fire that guy. It's much more about, for us, understanding that we have a process in place, we have to stick with our process, and then maybe are there things that you have to tweak within that. And that's how I've operated for over 34 years. I'm certainly going to feel the pain of our entire state when we're not successful. This is an important position and one where we've got a great following. So you can be assured that every ounce of our energy, every minute in the day is focused on how do we get the right outcomes. And that certainly was the case after the Florida game. Obviously, we missed some opportunities. Clearly you have to score touchdowns in this game. Kicking field goals is not enough. We're not scoring enough points. And we're giving up plays, explosive plays on defense. So if you want to know where the focus is, that is largely the focus moving forward. There were a lot of positive things, 92 plays on offense and 42 minutes in possession time, 23 first downs. We have a system in place, but it's not turning to what's most important, and that is points at the end of the day. So, again, have to re-examine that. Was pleased that there was a much more balanced running attack. If you take out the negative plays, it was about 186 yards in rushing. That's more to my liking. We had a chance to get our hands on the ball a couple of times on defense, but it came down to a couple of explosive plays. I think it was 3 touchdowns and 11 total plays. So, we know where we have to address, our issues there. Again, as we begin now to get ready for Vanderbilt, well acquainted with Clark. He's done a great job of building this program. 6-4 this year with a great win over Alabama, Kentucky, and Auburn. It's a tough and physical defense. They play it in a manner to keep the points down, and I think defensively, just do a really good job in terms of balance against the rush and against the pass. Obviously, the offensive structure has changed. Diego Pavia leads their team in rushing, completion percentage at 60%. He's a tough, hard-nosed player, and he is the guy that makes it happen for him. Alexander's a really good back. I really love the tight end, Eli Stowers, and Quincy Skinner, a really good wide receiver. So this is a talented football team with a veteran offensive line. Their special teams is outstanding. Their kicker, I think, has got multiple kicks over 50 yards. Love the punt returner, Martell Height. I think he's got about a 17-yard average. And, you've got to defend the running game. It's really triple option in a lot of ways. This is, akin to playing when I was at Notre Dame, Navy and Army, Air Force. And then, there's certainly our players want to finish the right way. We've got 2 games plus a bowl game. We've got 3 games to play. And it's important that we finish out strong, especially in Tiger Stadium. So with that, I'll open it up to questions.
Brian, you mentioned maybe tweaks to the process. Is there anything that you're going to want to try to do differently, or just how are you going to go about keeping this team together after 3 straight losses here toward the end?
Yeah, those are things that we'll meet on today. Monday's an important day. We get the team back, and so we'll get to talk about some of the things that are important relative to, look, I think we have it up here, motivation. It's your job to motivate you. I mean, our players understand it's their job to motivate, but as coaches, we also have to show them clearly the things that they've done well. Right? So they have to be motivated about the things they've done well. As I mentioned, take the Alabama game out of the mix. We had 3 games going late into the third quarter where we have a chance to win those games. Legitimate, not like pie in the sky, well, I think we can win these games. These are games that we believed we could have won and should have won. Well, that puts you at 9-1. You're probably in the top 5 in the country. That team, I can stand here and say, we didn't get the job done. We didn't finish. But this football team is far from not believing that they can do the job and get the job done. So we'll talk about that today. And then when we talk about tweaking the process, it's about what's important right now for these next 2 weeks, 12 days. What's important right now? And maybe shift their focus a little bit more on some of the things that will help us close out games. That's how we'll move forward today.
Coach, Deshaun Womack, I believe he didn't travel with the team this past week. What's his availability with you guys moving forward?
He'll be available this week.
Brian, in the postgame, you talked about fighters and quitters. How do you identify?
I didn't talk about quitters. I talked about fighting.
Okay.
Yes.
How do you identify the fighters this week? What's it going to take for you to say, that's my guy?
Yeah, I think, when you go out to practice for 2 hours, Mike, you know the guys that are invested, the guys that are bought in, and this football team is bought in. They're disappointed, just like our fan base, just like our coaches. We're all disappointed that we haven't gotten the outcomes that we want. But this is a group that has resilience, that has grit. We've built it in this program, and they'll respond. Now, for those that choose not to, that's their choice. They'll have the autonomy to make those choices. But there's nowhere to hide when you go out on that practice field. You can't hide it, right? You have to put in the effort. You have to put in the time. You have to prepare the right way. And I'm confident in our group in terms of how they'll do that.
We're on the right. After the game, you talked about the head coach needing to get more involved when things aren't going well. Can you walk us through what the process is in game for play calling right now?
Yeah, Joe Sloan will call the plays. They'll certainly be on my headset. And look, like any head coach, he's going to be involved in the ultimate decision of whether that's a go or a no-go. Now, as you know, communication has broadened. That communication includes the quarterback as well. So it can't be this long, conversation about, this play, that play, or it becomes confusing to what he's hearing in his ear. Because the head coach is on that and the play caller, both on defense and offense. So there's only 3 of us that have that with the green dot.
So Garrett can hear you too?
Yes, yeah. I can override that. I choose not to, but it's something that you can do if you wanted to as the head coach. The key here is the ability to make sure that the game is going in the manner that I want it to go in. And at times you have to take that action as a head coach. Not that somebody's being put in the penalty box, but making sure it goes through the vision that I have for that particular game.
Coach, since you arrived, you said that you wanted to build your program through high school recruiting.
Yeah.
Are you seeing where this transfer portal coming up that you're going to need a number that you probably wouldn't like to have to go for? And is that number, you think, going to be that way for years to come?
The transfer portal will not go away. You're absolutely right. And the transfer portal will be something that we have to investigate and look at. I do not want a program that is built, if you will, on the portal. We have to rely on young players. We are playing a lot of young players, as you know, right now. First-year players, those that are here for a very short period of time. We have 19 coming in at mid-semester. So we're still going to be playing some younger players, but there needs to be the right mix and right balance. So the transfer portal will be something that is examined closely, and if we feel like there's a particular need there to balance off our football team, we're certainly going to be invested in that.
Given Paul Mubenga's struggles this past weekend, is Tyree Adams available for more snaps potentially at left guard?
Yeah, I mean, we're going to play the guys that we think give us the best chance, right? I mean, whoever's assessment relative to who played and how they played is really an assessment left to our coaching staff. We'll decide who the best guys are. Tyree was forced into action, as you know, when Miles went down, and he went in and he competed the best he could, given somebody that hadn't played in quite some time. So both of those guys are still going to be in the mix. Both of those guys are still in the phases of, getting early snaps. In other words, in their career, early snaps. So they're still developing, quite frankly. But we're high on both of them. Both of them will be ready to play this weekend.
Hey, I know recruiting tends to be long-term, but do you call your commitments and guys that are close to committing more over the next, now, after a 3-game losing streak than you would, had you won 3 of those or 2 of those?
I would hope that we are calling them as much as if we were winning 3 games as the same as we're losing 3 games. Look, in today's world, with revenue sharing, NIL, transfer portal, all of those things, you have to maintain these relationships throughout the entire year. So whether there's an uptick, whether we've lost a couple of games or not, there should not be. There should be a constant communication with those players, and I think under my watch and understanding what I see every week, because we meet on this 4 times during the week, our guys have done the right things in terms of communication.
It seems like the timing maybe between Chris Hilton and Garrett Nussmeier hasn't quite been there since he's come back, and particularly with the jumping for deep balls.
Yeah.
How do you kind of work with him on those so that he runs through the catch?
Well, you want to do that in practice, and we've had conversations in practice about using your speed and continue to keep your feet on the ground. Look, Chris desperately wants to make plays for us, and he's in that mindset. And I think it's much more about letting the game come to you, and part of that is he's been out so long. And he wants to make an impact. So this is really about a guy that's anxious and wants to make plays and really has to let the game come to him. Matter of fact, that was the conversation we had on the sideline. And understanding that these are the things that we talked about in practice, and they're still showing up in the game, let the game come to you. And he clearly understood that.
Too, if I can, was there anything that Florida identified on the outside that enabled them to have success, or was that just, a one-on-one opportunity that they got the better of?
Well, I mean, I think you can take a look at the shots. The big touchdown that was the second touchdown, the late one, we were in double coverage. We were doubling inside and out. Zay Alexander and Jordan Gilbert, they were doubling that receiver. We got beat on a double move, a slant and go. With Stamps, and we got beat in the slot with PJ. So you got 3 different scenarios there where we got beat in man coverage, and obviously, if you have to look back on it and go, maybe we should have played more zone. But we've got to have the ability to play some man-to-man coverage, and unfortunately, this weekend against Florida, in those 3 instances which I brought up, we did not get the job done.
And secondly, you guys had a successful intermediate passing game early in the season. It doesn't seem to be as prevalent right now. Is there something that you can identify as getting back to, or is it literally just timing and having the opportunity to make those throws?
No, I think teams have decided here's how we want to play you, and we have to be able to push the ball vertically. And that's really what we're addressing and making sure that we do everything in our practice to connect on those. I think you saw 3 balls that were thrown down the field. All 3 we missed on in some fashion. Those balls need to be completed. We need to push the ball because we have defenders that are sitting on all of our routes and making it more difficult than it was earlier in the year.
If I can get 2 about Vanderbilt, you're going to face Diego Pavia, a good running quarterback. Anything you do differently this week? And then also, you mentioned Clark Lee was with you for 4 years at Notre Dame. Could you identify the things then that would make him a good head coach, and maybe just a thought on him sort of persevering after some rough seasons to break through this year.
Yeah, good question. I think, first of all, in terms of defense, I think you have to have a different mindset when you go against this offense. This is truly assignment-oriented football, and you have to be disciplined, much like what that offense brings you is they want to catch you undisciplined. They want to catch you doing something that's not your job. So the big focus this will be disciplined in getting your job done in all three phases, inside, out, and on the perimeter. As it relates to Clark, Clark is extremely locked into what his process is and how he's developed his process. He's stayed steadfast with that, even through some of the rougher years, and that's why they're on the other side of this. They haven't gone for the flavor of the week. This has been a consistent approach as a head coach saying, this is our system, this is our process, this is how we do things, and we're sticking with it, and you can start to see how that's paying off for him today. Absolutely. I mean, that's the way he ran everything. All of our meetings were in lockstep. Everything that we did was in a consensus, which I'm certain he's getting that same consensus within his program at Vanderbilt.
You referenced that conversation with Chris on the field. Do your office hours get extended in tough times? Is your open door even more open? And how do you handle communication with the athletes?
Yeah, I mean, I think, look, as I said earlier, there's nobody here in this building that's happy about where we are and what the outcomes are. Essentially, what you're doing more than anything else is getting the autonomy or the feedback from your players, because they're stakeholders in this as well, and so you want to hear what they have to say. What are the things that we need to stop doing? What are the things that we need to start doing? What are the things that we need to do more of? And so we're always asking those things from our players and getting that kind of feedback. So, yeah, your door better be open. It better be a revolving door, especially at times like this that are rough. They're hard on anybody that follows LSU football. They're hard on the head coach and the assistant coaches and the players and the guy that sweeps out here and cleans up in this building, the janitors. Everybody's affected when LSU football loses, and players obviously even more so.
In that game against Alabama that Vanderbilt had, what allowed them to be so effective in moving the ball so consistently in that game?
I think it was just a disciplined approach to what they were doing, play in and play out. I think it's like anything else. Would Alabama made some adjustments now that they have gone through that? I think probably. They've grown from that, but I will say that their consistent approach, they didn't go away from it. They were not afraid to continue to do what they were doing, punt the football, play field position, and then be opportunistic defensively. They did a great job defensively in that game, and that sometimes gets overlooked how well they played in that game defensively.
Hey, Coach, you mentioned eliminating the big plays after this loss to Florida. And I believe that after the game, Witt said that on Florida's last touchdown, the defense was running two different things. Is it surprising that kind of thing's happening at this point in the season, and how do you go about fixing that?
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm disappointed that certainly there was a feeling that there were some mixed calls or signals out there. I think one of the big things that we've learned in this new era of communication in the headset for the players is there needs to be one voice. One voice. Even if you have the green dot, the one voice needs to be consistent and constant. And maybe that occurred. We're trying to get to the end of that too, and what happened there. But clearly that's on us as coaches. We have to make sure that there's clear communication and that there's no mixed messages relative to what's being called. We have a guy on the sideline who's signaling everything in. That hasn't changed. We haven't stopped signaling. So there's no reason why you can't get the signal. But if you hear something, we then have to address what is that collateral sound out there that they're hearing that would not put them in the right call. So we have to take onus on that. We have to make sure that that never happens again.
With Garrett, I know that there was the one fumble there in the second half, but considering the pressure he was facing most of the game, were you pleased with his decision-making and just kind of it looked like he threw the ball away several times when nothing was there? I mean, just maybe talk about maybe the one-game growth you might have seen in that department.
I thought he was extremely intentional about his actions, in terms of taking care of the football. And he would say that to me coming off the field. Maybe I could have done this, but I was very intentional about making sure we took great care of the football. Look, he is in the midst of this continuous improvement in the pocket, and I think he's doing a really nice job. There's room for growth there, and the great part about it is he's up for it. He wants to get better in this first year of being a starter, and I'm excited about coaching him. I know everybody that is with Garrett has a guy that is totally committed to being better and better each week.
Update on your offensive lineman. Is Dellinger going to be available to practice this week, and is Miles also?
Yeah, we believe that Miles will be able to practice this week. Dellinger will still be, where do we think he is early in the week to make a decision later in the week. We're getting closer. We're getting closer where we think there's a chance that he could play, but we won't make that decision until probably midweek.
And then with Diego, their quarterback, just so much of his game seems to be talent, sure, but willingness, heart, desire, those are things that you have to, take into account for, I'm sure, when you're preparing for a quarterback like that. What can you emphasize about your team that the play is probably never over?
Well, again, I think you have to be able to match, the want and desire of any opponent that we play in this league with the same want and desire. I am pleased with my football team's want and desire. They have prepared very well. The one thing that we've done well is we've prepared. As I mentioned to you, 3 games going late into the third quarter where we have a chance to win. And that's not, as I said, that's not just trying to put a good spin on it. So their preparation's pretty good, their want to and their desire to play hard. Now we have to execute when execution is needed at its highest level. And that falls on both of us, players and coaches alike, to get our players in the position so they can be successful and close out football games. But I really do believe that our preparation and our want to is going to match a guy like Diego, who has a great desire to play.
Devon Key's got a lot of playing time in
Yes.
this game, and looked like y'all went kind of back to that 4-3 base at times. Is that
Correct.
something you want to continue to do moving forward?
Yeah, I think it's a game-to-game, Wilson, depending on who we're playing, the opponent, what it looks like. This weekend, obviously, we're in more of an option look, and we'll see how that fits. But we were pleased with Devon in terms of what he did, being asked to be involved in the game the way he was. We were pleased with what he did for us when he was given that opportunity.
Coach, I know you're going to evaluate everything once the season is over with across the board, but do you have any questions in your own mind about maybe the strength and power of this team? And there's a lot of new age techniques. Do you think maybe some of that's getting away from the core lifts and stuff that's done in the offseason?
No, I have no problem with our strength and conditioning program. It's one that I've run for a long time. Matter of fact, I think we bring in the science as well as anybody in the country. I think Alabama, their head strength coach was on my staff. We share a lot of the data. We share a lot of the work that we do. We just came through our final phase of testing here in the 1st of November. Which we call our peak phase, and guys made incredible improvements. A guy like DJ Chester is 142% of his averages. That's how high he has increased his strength throughout the season. So we actually have a way of looking at that data. Instead of saying, well, I think he's stronger, or well, he looks stronger, we have data that will allow us to say, you know what? Your peak numbers are down, and let's look at the reasons why. Is this effort? Is this injury? And some of it is sometimes, like, for example, we have a speed squat that we do. Miles is down a little bit. He's about 92% of his max, but he's had this ankle, right? So he couldn't be as explosive, during those testing periods. So we're pretty exhaustive in the sports science division here. We think we send a really good message and a trend out there that we have that data that we can build our football team on.
You guys showed some real improvement in the running game this past week. What were some of the things that you guys were doing better in the run game, especially in that this is that one drive, I think early third quarter, where I think it just stalled out in the red zone, but it was a very impressive drive.
Commitment to running the football in all downs and distances. As you know, it's the first time we've run it on first, second, third, and fourth down all year. So every down, a commitment to the run game, and mixing it up. You know, we were outside zone to one side, we were counter back the other side, we were a toss, we were split zone. You know, we had some reverses and some handoff sweeps, largely not as effective as we would have liked in the fourth down situation. But I think versatility to the run game and commitment to it, and then the play action off of it is absolutely crucial as well. Those elements were in play, and they need to continue to be in play. All right, thank you. You're welcome.